Why, good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television. I am Aishwarya Kapoor with you. While you were asleep, Prime Minister Narendra Modi rolled out India's biggest tax reform, the goods and services tax, at the stroke of midnight hour to bind the country into a regime of one nation, one tax, one market. That is our top story this morning. Let us start with the other top stories in the headlines. India's biggest tax reform launched at midnight event in Central Hall of Parliament. President calls the GST disruptive tax reform. Prime Minister calls it good and simple tax. Several opposition parties including NCP, JDU, BSP, SP attend a launch event. Congress, TMC left stay away, call it a drama. Kailash Mansarovar Yatra through Nathula cancelled. India tells China its actions in Sikkim have serious security implications. And India beat West Indies by 93 runs in third ODI at Antigua, take unassailable lead in 5-match series. The Goods and Services Tax, or the GST, India's biggest tax reform since independence, is in force. Now, the new tax regime was ushered in at a late-night event in the historic Central Hall of Parliament. President Pranab Mukherjee, Vice President Mohammad Hamid Ansari, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan and former Prime Minister H.D. Deve Gowda were among those who attended the event. The GST has come into force after 17 years of debate, unifying more than a dozen central and state levies. The President and the Prime Minister expressed they pressed a button in a specially crafted box at the stroke of midnight to launch the new tax regime. The One National GST unifies the country's $2 trillion economy and 1.3 billion people into a common market. Unlike the last midnight event held in 1997 on the occasion of the Golden Jubilee of Independence at a special session of Parliament, it was a gala event at the circular-shaped hall that had been loaned for the launch of the historic reform. Now, speaking on the occasion, President Pranab Mukherjee called the GST a disruptive change, saying that the new tax system was a tribute to the maturity and wisdom of India's democracy. He said that the new era in taxation was the result of a broad consensus between the centre and the states, and that the GST Council should continuously review the implementation for improvements. Now, lauding the efforts for making GST a reality, the President said that the efforts came from persons across the political spectrum who set aside their differences and put the nation's interest first. The President also said that if a moment of satisfaction for him is because he, as Finance Minister, had introduced the Constitution Amendment Bill in 2011 and was closely involved in the design and the implementation.
There were apprehensions whether the task of fixing rates for thousands of items could be accomplished by the GST Council, given the wide variations across states. The Council has pleasantly surprised every one of us by completing its task on time. Friends, the new era in taxation, which we are about to initiate in a few minutes, is the result of broad consensus arrived at between the centre and states. This consensus took not only time but also effort to build. The effort came from persons across the political spectrum who set aside narrow partisan considerations and put the nation's interest first. It is a tribute to the maturity and wisdom of India's democracy.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi also lauded the Goods and Services Tax, saying that the new tax regime is not only the legacy of one political party, but the collective legacy of all political parties. He said that the GST will ensure economic integration and will bring all the states closer. Prime Minister Modi asserted that the GST is an example of strength of Team India. Now, hailing the new tax regime, Prime Minister Modi said that the GST is a good and simple tax regime that will eliminate the compounding effects of multi-layered tax system. The Prime Minister also emphasized that this would stop black money and corruption and benefit the poor. Now, congratulating the GST Council and all those who took the tax reform forward, Prime Minister Modi said that whoever forms the future governments, they will abide by the pro-poor principle of the GST.
जीएसटी की ये प्रक्रिया ये सिर्फ अर्थव्यवस्था के दायरे तक सीमित है ऐसा मैं नहीं मानता। पिछले कई वर्षों से अलग अलग महानुभावों के मार्गदर्शन में, नेतृत्व में, अलग अलग टीमों के द्वारा जो प्रक्रियाएं चली हैं वो एक प्रकार से भारत के लोकतंत्र की, भारत के संघीय ढांचे की, कोऑपरेटिव फेडरलिज्म के हमारे कंसेप्ट की एक बहुत बड़ी मिसाल के रूप में आज ये अवसर हमारा आया है। जो रास्ता हमने चुना है, जिस व्यवस्था को हमने विकसित किया है, यह किसी एक दल की सिद्धि नहीं है। यह किसी एक सरकार की सिद्धि नहीं है। ये हम सबकी साझी विरासत है। हम सबके साझे प्रयासों का परिणाम है।
And Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, who delivered the introductory remarks during the launch event, said that this is a historic occasion and that the new tax regime opens limitless possibilities for the country. He also thanked the states and various opposition parties for their support in ensuring that the GST rollout meets the 1st of July deadline.
GST may be a destination tax, but for India it will begin altogether a new journey. It's a journey where India will awake to limitless possibilities, to expand its economic horizons and loftier political visions. The old India was economically fragmented. The new India will create one tax, one market, and for one nation.
All right, let's listen to some of the other political reactions coming over the GST rollout.
ये जीएसटी का कानून सभी दलों ने मिलकर पार्लियामेंट में पारित किया है और इस वजह से आज जब एक कानून सारे देश ने माना है, सभी दलों ने माना है, तो उसके बारे में राजनीति का इसमें कोई स्थान बनता नहीं है।
यह एक ऐतिहासिक क्षण है भारत के लिए। दरअसल देखिए, पिछले 5000 वर्षों से जो भारत की एकता रही है और जिस पर हम सबको फक्र है, वह सांस्कृतिक और आध्यात्मिक एकता रही है। पहली बार आर्थिक एकता के सूत्र में यह देश बन रहा है।
Now, the GST will subsume most of the indirect taxes on production, sales and supply of goods and services within the country and will cover all the stages of transaction. Now, Rajya Sabha TV helps you understand this tax reform. Take a look.
Despite being a single unified nation, India was divided into multiple tax jurisdictions. It was not a single market for production or the supply of goods and services. India had 3 statutory authorities: the central government, the state governments and the local bodies or municipal councils, levying and collecting multiple taxes on the production, sale and supply of goods and services. For instance, the central government levied excise duty on the production of goods, but it also levied central sales tax on the interstate sale of goods. Also, under the Constitution, the central government was exclusively empowered to levy and collect service tax on the supply of services like telephone and mobile bills, courier and transportation services, finance services, air travel and dining in restaurants and hotels, among others. State governments, on the other hand, levied VAT, the value-added tax or the sales tax on the sale of products within their states. Finally, municipal councils and local bodies levied entry tax or octroi on the entry of vehicles in their area.
In our country, we have two sort of taxes. One is direct tax, that is income tax. Second is indirect taxes, like sales tax, VAT, octroi. Now, all the indirect taxes have been clubbed into one tax, which would be called GST from now. Now, how would GST impact us? GST would make life more efficient, more smooth, more fast for a businessman or a person who is trading or manufacturing. Basically, GST would increase the GDP of the country and it would increase growth.
The multiplicity of taxes not only resulted in cascading taxes, but their implementation also became slow and complex. What it did on the ground was to hamper the smooth movement of raw material and finished products across the country. And inhibited the growth of businesses. Krishna Antarpati's report for Rajya Sabha Television.
All right, to overcome the problems of multiple authorities and different taxes, the concept of a single common goods and services tax administered jointly by both the states and the centre was mooted in the past decade. Now, the outcome was intended to be one nation, one tax.
The process of having a single unified tax structure, however, was fraught with many challenges as it required changes in the constitution that needed to be approved by 2/3 majority of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha and subsequently ratified by at least half of the state assemblies. Given the fractured nature of Indian politics, this was considered almost impossible. However, over a decade of efforts by the two UPA governments and the present NDA government eventually bore fruit. And in May 2015, the Lok Sabha passed the Constitutional Amendment Bill, while the Rajya Sabha did so in August 2016. The bill was then retransmitted to Lok Sabha with the amendments made by Rajya Sabha that were approved unanimously by Lok Sabha on 8th August 2016. This has ensured the implementation of the GST in its present form.
ये अगर सक्सेसफुली रोल आउट हो जाता है तो मेरी समझ से ये अपने आप में एक बहुत बड़ा आर्थिक सुधार होगा और इकोनॉमी के लिए बहुत ज़्यादा फ़ायदेमंद होगा और शॉर्ट टर्म में थोड़ी बहुत दिक्कतें ज़रूर आएंगी पर मीडियम टू लॉन्ग टर्म में ना ये सिर्फ बिज़नेस के लिए बेनिफिशियल है परंतु कीमतों के हिसाब से भी जो है कंज्यूमर्स के लिए बेनिफिशियल होगा और टैक्स बेस के हिसाब से लिए सरकार के लिए बहुत बेनिफिशियल होगा.
GST will subsume most of the central and state taxes on production and supply of goods and services, including central excise duty, central sales tax, service tax, state sales tax or VAT, commercial tax, advertising tax, entertainment tax, purchase tax, luxury tax, and also entry tax levied by municipalities. Krishna Antarpati's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
That was our segment on the GST launch and time to take a very short break here. We'll be back with more news. Stay tuned.
This is Kibutu in Arunachal Pradesh, East Point East on the map of India. Kibutu is dangerously close to the Chinese pressure point. We see first-hand and unseen areas of sand dunes and see how BSF is guarding this difficult territory along the Indo-Pak borderline. We are now slowly entering into the interior-most parts of the Sarkirik area. Indo-Tibetan Border Police Force justifies each word of this thing. Watch super exclusive episodes of National Security Series only on Rajya Sabha Television.
Key areas where Roorkee has contributed heavily is the building of all the dams in the country. Either the University of Roorkee or Thompson College of Engineering was directly involved or it was supplying the manpower who were doing it. Engineering is not about building things alone. Engineering is about building theoretical models. So the most difficult part of engineering is actually done before you go to actual fabrication or manufacturing.
Watch Eureka with Professor Ajit Kumar Chaturvedi, Director, Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, only on Rajya Sabha television. Jade was popular during Mughal era and gained prominence during Akbar's rule in 15th and 16th century. It came all the way from Iran and Central Asia in attractive colors. The royalty had a unique use for it, since jade changed color when it came in contact with arsenic. They started utensils like plates, jars, bowls, and even hookah with it.
The story we thought we knew. The story of magnificence. The story of bloody battles. Of those who ruled and those who left their footprints. The story charting the course of our past. Talking history on Rajya Sabha TV.
Welcome back after the break. Now, in order to garner maximum support for the upcoming presidential polls, NDA's candidate Ramnath Kovind and opposition's Meera Kumar are crisscrossing the country. After Jammu and Kashmir, Haryana and Punjab, Kovind will embark on his southern outreach program. In Chennai today, he will meet the members of the Electoral College from Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Puducherry. Kovind will meet MLAs and MPs in the AIA-DMK's Amma faction. For about the next 15 days, Kovind will be on his election trail, accompanied by top union ministers and functionaries of the party. Kovind's next stop will be in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh on 4th of July, followed by Karnataka on 5th of July, and then he will head to the east and the northeast of the country. Meanwhile, the opposition's candidate Meera Kumar, who kicked off her campaign from Gujarat, will also be in Chennai. She will meet MLAs from the DMK, Congress and the IUML. She will then leave for Puducherry on 2nd of July morning and later in the day proceed to Kerala. On to the other top story, the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra through Nathula in Sikkim has been cancelled. The decision comes in the wake of the face-off between Indian and Chinese troops over a disputed area along the Sino-India border. The move will come as a disappointment to the 800 devotees hoping to visit the high-altitude area through the Nathula route. Now, however, the pilgrimage through Lipu Lake Pass in Uttarakhand will continue as scheduled. Now, China had issued visas for the first 2 batches and applications for the other pilgrims were put on hold because of the tension along the border. The first batch of Kailash Mansarovar pilgrims had to return from the Nathula border post as the standoff between India and China showed no signs of easing. Meanwhile, India on Friday expressed deep concern over the construction of a road by China in Doklam area near Sikkim. In a message conveyed to China, India said that such a construction will significantly change the status quo with serious security implications for India. India further said that all parties concerned must display utmost restraint and abide by their respective bilateral understandings not to change the status quo unilaterally. Let's get you some more national developments in Nationwide. Senior advocate and constitutional expert K.K. Venugopal has been appointed as the new Attorney General of India. He succeeds Mukul Rohtagi as the country's top law officer. President Pranab Mukherjee has approved his appointment and formal orders are expected soon. The growth in 8 core sectors slowed to 3.6% in May due to fall in output of coal, fertilizer and steel. Growth rate of 8 infrastructure sectors, coal, crude oil, natural gas refinery products, fertilizers, steel, cement and electricity was 5.2% in May last year. Now, 5 of the 8 industries except coal, fertilizers and steel witnessed a sequential improvement in growth. A mid-air collision between an Indigo plane and a BSF aircraft, which had Union Home Secretary Rajiv Merishi on board, was averted over Banihal in Jammu and Kashmir on Friday. The two aircrafts came precisely close to each other when an automatic alert went off, prompting the pilots to steer to a safer distance. There were 180 passengers on board the Indigo aircraft and 12, including the Home Secretary, on the BSF plane. Over 8,000 pilgrims paid obeisance at the cave shrine of Amarnath on the second day of the annual pilgrimage, which was suspended earlier in the day after multiple landslides triggered by heavy rains blocked the Jammu-Srinagar National Highway. Till date, 14,247 yatris paid obeisance to the ice lingam. The yatra resumed from Pahalgam and Bartal routes after being suspended for a few hours due to rain around the holy cave shrine in the South Kashmir Himalayas. All right, let's get you some international news. A gunman opened fire inside a hospital in the Bronx borough of New York, killing one doctor and injuring 6 other people, 5 of them seriously. The gunman has been identified as Dr. Henry Bello, who previously worked at the hospital. He had resigned in 2015 in lieu of termination. Now, the shooting began at about 3 in the afternoon at the 1,000-bed Bronx hospital. All the victims were shot on the 16th and the 17th floors of the hospital. After the shooting, the gunman tried to set himself on fire and thereafter died of a self-inflicted wound. The police said that the gunman was wearing a white medical coat when found. An assault rifle was also discovered nearby. Of the 6 people who were wounded, 5 are in a serious condition from gunshot wounds. Now, New York Mayor Bill de Blasio said that the shooting was not an act of terrorism, but rather workplace related.
This was not an act of terrorism. It is an isolated incident. Appears to be a workplace-related matter, but that makes it no less tragic or no less horrible. One doctor is dead, and there are several doctors who are fighting for their lives right now amongst those who are wounded. As you know, the shooter killed himself, but not before having done horrible damage.
Now, the red and yellow standard of the People's Republic of China rose over Hong Kong on Saturday as the city marks 2 decades of Chinese rule. A series of events have been planned for the day with thousands of police deployed. China's President Xi Jinping joined the celebrations, swearing in a new Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam in a formal ceremony next to Victoria Harbour. Now, it is Xi's first visit to the city since he took power in Beijing in 2013. Meanwhile, ahead of the celebrations, scuffles broke out on Saturday when a pro-democracy march was attacked by pro-China campaigners. Among the pro-democracy activists was the leader of the umbrella protesters, Joshua Wong. The confrontation expresses the tensions in the city between those who seek a greater freedom and those loyal to leadership on the mainland. At the gala event on Friday night, the Chinese leader Xi urged Hong Kongers to unite and build on the progress made by previous generations.
丛林美丽的湘江，同大家共同庆祝香港回归祖国20周年，我感到十分高兴。在此，一国两制、港人治港、高度自治的方针。
And on to some sports news now. India defeated West Indies by 93 runs in the third ODI at Antigua to take an unassailable lead in the 5-match series. Now, pitching to bat first, India struggled early on, losing opener Shikhar Dhawan and captain Virat Kohli inside 10 overs. But Ajinkya Rahane held fort at the other end with a gritty 72 before MS Dhoni and Kedar Jadhav pushed the visitors' total to 251 for 4. Now, Dhoni remained not out on 78. While Jadhav hit a quick-fire 40 runs from 26 balls. In reply, the hosts struggled from the start and were reduced to 87 for 5 in the 20th over. Now, Powell and Jason Mohammed added runs for the 6th wicket, but the resistance was soon broken as West Indies were bundled for 158 in 38.1 overs. For India, spinners Ravichandran Ashwin and Kuldeep Yadav bagged 3 wickets each. India now lead the 5-match series 2-0. The 4th ODI will be played on Sunday at the same venue. Some more sporting action in Sports Wrap. The Board of Control for Cricket in India, or the BCCI, on Friday announced that Rahul Dravid will continue to remain as the coach for India A and under-19 teams for the next 2 years. The former Indian captain was first appointed as coach for the 2 teams in 2015. In his first assignment as coach, the India A side won the triangular series in Australia and repeated the success with the under-19 team as well, guiding them to the 2016 World Cup final. Leander Paes and his Canadian partner Adil Shamsuddin have crashed out of the men's doubles event of the Antalya Open tennis tournament. In the semi-final at Antalya, Turkey, the Indo-Canadian pair lost to the combination of Oliver Marash of Austria and Mate Pavic of Croatia in straight sets 4-6, 4-6. Earlier, India's Ramkumar Ramanathan had bowed out of the men's singles at the tournament against Marcos Baghdatis in 3 sets 7-6, 3-6, 6-7. Novak Djokovic sharpened his cross-court game ahead of the next week's Wimbledon by beating Russian Daniil Medvedev 6-4, 6-4 on Friday to reach the Aegon International final. Next, Novak Djokovic will face the winner of the second semi-final between Frenchman Richard Gasquet and Gael Monfils on Saturday. That's it from me and my team in this edition of news. Thanks for watching. Have a great day ahead.